So I want you to imagine a life where, well, your baseline level of joy is just completely fixed. Like, totally regardless of your external circumstances.
Right, which is nearly impossible for most of us to even picture.
Exactly. But picture waking up in this sprawling, multi-million-dollar luxury villa, right?
Uh-huh.
And then picture waking up on the dirt floor of a really drafty thatched hut.
Quite the contrast.
Oh, massive contrast. But now imagine feeling the exact same, like, profound, unshakable contentment in both of those places. Or, imagine sitting down to a feast of rare delicacies and then the next day chewing on plain, dry, steamed buns while sipping water with pickles, and your emotional state just doesn't shift a single millimeter.
It's the ultimate pursuit of total equilibrium. I mean, it's a complete leveling of the emotional playing field, where the external world has zero bearing on your internal reality.
Yeah, and that brings us to today's deep dive. We are returning to Xuefeng's universe. Specifically, we're drilling down into the 2004 translation of his text, Elementary Cultivation.
Which is a fascinating read.
It really is. I mean, we already know his ultimate goal is to elevate human consciousness to what he calls the celestial state. But today, we are looking at the actual, sometimes really brutal, step-by-step mechanics he demands practitioners follow to get there.
Yeah, he's basically blending Taoist, Buddhist, and Christ-like principles into this radical philosophical guide for navigating and ultimately transcending really the chaos of modern life.
And the mechanics of this text are, well, they're demanding, to say the least.
Oh, absolutely. It requires fundamentally rewiring how you perceive absolutely everything around you.
Right.
Every meal you eat, every relationship you maintain, every single crisis you face has to be run through a completely new psychological filter.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the very first step in this guide centers on the concept of radical acceptance, right? And dismantling the illusion of control.
Yeah, the text insists on a strict policy of non-action and total adaptability.
Right, like it argues that if society needs you to be a president, you just be a president. If it needs you to be a cleaner, you sweep the floors.
No resistance either way.
None at all. And it applies this to the most intimate parts of our lives, too. Like, if your spouse decides they want a divorce, you let them leave without a fight.
Wow.
Yeah. If your child gets into a prestigious college, wonderful. If they don't, you let them do something else. Praise, insults, defiance, extreme poverty. These external events are supposed to just wash over you without leaving a mark.
Right, and to understand the underlying logic here, we really have to look at what Xuefeng describes as operating simultaneously with a Taoist heart, a Buddhist heart, and a Christ heart.
The trifecta.
Exactly. These three philosophies are synthesized to create this ideal mindset. So the Taoist heart represents flowing with the natural current of reality, right, rather than fighting it.
Makes sense.
And then the Buddhist heart represents emptiness and total non-attachment to outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, the Christ heart represents universal sacrificial love that just doesn't demand anything in return.
So you mix those all together.
Yeah, when you integrate all three, the text argues your mind becomes entirely clear. It actually uses the metaphor of a diamond.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, because a diamond doesn't need to exert effort to shine, right? Regardless of where you place it, its internal structure naturally refracts light into a colorful halo.
So basically, the moment you try to scheme or, manipulate a situation to get a specific outcome, you are essentially smudging the diamond.
Exactly, smudging the diamond. The text says that schemes, even if they appear to benefit you in the short term, they fundamentally damage your own nature.
It reminds me of the physics of moving water. Like, you can float down a fast-moving river on your back effortlessly, or you can exhaust yourself fighting the current to swim upstream.
That's a really good way to put it. Pushing against the flow only hurts the person doing the pushing.
But, I am struggling to reconcile the practical application of this. Wait, if you just let your spouse divorce you without even having a conversation to try and fix the marriage, or you just shrug your shoulders if your kid gives up on college, aren't you just abandoning your responsibilities? It feels like giving up on life.
Well, yeah, it definitely looks like passivity from our modern goal-oriented perspective, for sure. We're so conditioned to believe that we must forge our own destinies. But the text frames this differently. It argues that human beings fundamentally lack the ability to control the environment or accurately predict the future anyway.
So trying to is just pointless.
Basically. Therefore, any attempt to forcefully steer a spouse's feelings or a child's life trajectory is based on a delusion of control. You're fighting against reality. And by relinquishing that illusion, you eliminate the mental friction that drains your energy.
Okay, so if we accept that premise that we have zero control over the present, it completely breaks how we're supposed to interact with the future.
Oh, totally.
I mean, if the future is totally unpredictable, how can you possibly make a promise to someone?
What's fascinating here is how the text takes that exact logic and uses it to frame the basic glue of our society, our commitments to one another, as existential traps.
Traps, wow.
Yeah, it points out that life is entirely impermanent. It uses this great phrase, unexpected winds and clouds, to describe the volatile nature of existence.
Unexpected winds and clouds.
Right. And because you cannot mathematically guarantee you will even be alive tomorrow, the text argues that any promise you make is, fundamentally, a future lie.
A future lie? Wow, that is a heavy way to view a commitment.
It is.
But the text explains the mechanism behind this, right? It says if circumstances change and you cannot fulfill a promise, you are forced to make an excuse.
Save face.
Exactly. And that excuse is a fabrication to protect your ego, which eventually gets exposed, turning the original promise into a mental shackle.
It views power dynamics the exact same way, actually.
Oh, yeah. It compares holding power to holding burning charcoal.
Yeah.
Like, it might keep you warm temporarily, but it will inevitably turn to ashes. And relying on it causes you to lose touch with truth. But, I mean, the concept that I found most difficult to digest was its view on favors.
Ah, yes, the inescapable burden of the social debt.
The social debt. The text insists that favors are the biggest debt in life. It describes them as a mountain pressing on your heart.
It's very dramatic.
Extremely. And the rule laid out is incredibly strict. It says a drop of kindness received must be repaid with a gushing spring.
A gushing spring.
And if you fail to repay it, you are labeled a villain. If you repay kindness with revenge, you are a beast. It literally frames accepting a favor like taking out a high-interest credit card debt for your soul.
Which is terrifying.
Right. But taking a step back, how can anyone function in a community if they view a neighbor bringing over a bowl of soup as this terrifying, unpayable debt?
Well, they can't, at least not in the traditional sense. You were touching on the core friction of this philosophy. The text argues that normal human functioning is the trap.
Okay.
Our communities rely on messy, intertwined webs of mutual obligation, guilt, and future projections. The author is explicitly stating that if you want a truly free mind, capable of achieving the celestial state, you cannot owe anyone a gushing spring.
So we have to cut it all off.
Yes, you have to sever the deep, heavy ties of reciprocal debt that keep society running.
Wow. So to escape those intense societal debts and the emotional volatility that comes with them, the text pushes the practitioner toward a philosophy of absolute lightness.
It is a complete recalibration of your sensory and emotional baseline.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because this lightness applies to literally every facet of daily life.
Everything.
Everything. The food you eat should be light. Even if it is sour, sweet, or spicy, you are instructed never to overdo it. You shouldn't sit, stand, walk, or even think for too long in one stretch.
And keep it all moving.
Right. But crucially, it dictates that friendships should be as light as water. It warns that intense friendships hurt the heart and can turn sour instantly when expectations aren't met.
Which, I mean, we've all seen happen.
True. And we are explicitly told not to compare ourselves to others. Like, you shouldn't look at someone else's promotion, their high-end car, their wife's jewelry, or, their kids getting into prestigious universities.
None of it.
You are supposed to turn away from all of that and just ask yourself, who am I? It's almost like being a sound engineer and pulling the faders down on the entire mixing board of your life, keeping every single instrument at a flat level so nothing can ever clip and blow out the speakers.
That analogy perfectly captures the mechanism at work there. You are intentionally minimizing amplitude to maintain constant internal equilibrium.
Yeah.
And if we look at the underlying psychology the text is operating on, it becomes clear why this is necessary. Emotional intensity, whether it is profound romantic love, fierce career ambition, or bitter envy, inevitably breeds desires.
And desires are bad.
Exactly. Desires breed troubles, and those troubles clutter the mind, blocking the path to the celestial state.
So no intense friendships.
Right, because intense friendships naturally require expectations, and expectations mathematically lead to disappointment. So by keeping all relationships light as water, you are insulating your spiritual baseline.
I mean, I understand the logic of preventing disappointment, but human biology is wired for connection. We are constantly told that deep, intense bonds are the key to a fulfilling life. This lightness sounds an awful lot like keeping everyone you care about at arm's length just to protect yourself.
The text would likely agree with your assessment, actually. It is intentionally keeping the world at arm's length.
Really?
Yes, because this emotional detachment from human drama is meant to mirror the physical detachment we must achieve by modeling ourselves after elements of the natural world.
Oh, right, the nature metaphors. The text literally commands the practitioner to become like wood and stone. It says you must observe the world with a cold eye.
A cold eye.
Yeah, wood and stone sit outside and receive the warmth of the sun and the beating of the rain. They hear the chirping of insects and the shouting of people, but they are totally unmoved by suffering or chaos.
They exist within the environment without resisting it.
Exactly. And the instructions continue, right?
Yeah.
You must be like clouds drifting, formless, occasionally creating lightning, but never lingering.
Just passing through.
Yep. You must be like ice constant and cold to the touch, and like water formless, humble, capable of washing away dirt, but also capable of creating huge waves when necessary.
It's very poetic.
It is, but the strictest rule governing all of this is a mandate to never fight heaven, earth, or people.
Never fight.
Right. It says you should treat insults and slander the same way a plant treats a storm. Just let it blow over. And you should treat exploitation or oppression the way a cliff treats a tsunami. You absorb the impact and you ignore it. No fighting back, no anger, no retaliation.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text provides a profound ecological warning to back up this philosophy of radical non-resistance.
How so?
Well, it argues that fighting the environment, whether that is the physical ecosystem or the social landscape, is basically equivalent to digging our own graves, because it fundamentally misunderstands how interconnected systems operate.
Oh, right. The text gives some vivid examples of this mechanism. It says if humans use pesticides to kill insects to protect crops, we end up killing the birds that rely on those insects.
A chain reaction.
Yeah. Or if we try to engineer nature by turning deserts into oases, we disrupt the atmospheric balance and bring on severe weather. Altering nature destroys the biological chain and turns what should be heaven into hell.
It's a delicate balance.
It's like trying to solve a local pest problem by introducing a non-native predator, you know? You think you are fixing a micro issue, but you end up collapsing the entire macro ecosystem. Our interventions usually ruin the intricate balance.
Exactly. The interconnectedness of the universe is framed as a perfect, self-correcting system. When you insert your ego and fight it, you only create more suffering.
I mean, treating a literal tsunami like a cliff makes sense. You can't punch a tidal wave.
True.
But applying that same logic to human oppression, if you just absorb exploitation without fighting back, aren't you just telling people to be doormats for abusers? Enabling systemic injustice feels dangerous.
It is deeply challenging for us, for sure, because our modern framework values justice, activism, and defending our rights. But the text operates on a completely different cosmic scale. It views human beings as tiny, pitiful particles in a vast universe, particles that don't even know where they came from or when they will expire.
We're just dust.
Basically.
Yeah.
From that massive vantage point, getting worked up over interpersonal exploitation is like a single cell getting angry at the body it resides in. Furthermore, the text claims that by surrendering completely and refusing to fight back, you aren't becoming a weak doormat.
You're not.
No, you are actually preparing your physical form to unlock unimaginable reality-bending powers.
Oh, wow. Which brings us to the wild science fiction level shift in this guide.
There we go.
Yeah. The text explains that as you align with what it calls the one, which seems to be like the fundamental singular frequency of the universe, your body physically transforms.
Right.
It uses the metaphor of an ordinary piece of iron being magnetized. In a normal piece of iron, the internal molecules are scattered in different directions, canceling out their own energy.
Just chaotic.
Right, but when you stop resisting reality, your molecules align in one single direction until you become a magnet, channeling the broader force of the universe, and suddenly you develop special functions.
Manifesting supernatural ability.
Literally, walking on water, passing straight through solid walls. Invisibility.
It's wild.
It claims you could hold an iron rod in your hand and make it bend just by thinking about it. You could look at a person and force them to stop walking, or force them to move entirely with your mind.
But there is a catch.
A huge catch. But UT and the text places massive emphasis on this. You must never, ever show off. If you reveal these abilities to anyone, you instantly become a slave to them. You will be hounded by society and relatives who want to exploit your powers.
You become a tool for the very worldly system you are trying to transcend. You lose the celestial path because you were dragged back into the human economy of favors and utility.
And there is one explicit, unbreakable rule regarding these powers.
The healing rule.
Yes. You must never use them to cure diseases for others. Even if you possess the ability to cure cancer, eradicate leukemia, or resurrect the recently dead with a single breath, you are absolutely forbidden from doing so.
This raises an important question about the profound ethical dilemma embedded in this philosophy. You have acquired the power to end immense human suffering, yet you are forbidden to intervene. We have to look at how Xuefeng justifies this.
And the text does provide a highly specific mathematical breakdown of where human disease originates to explain exactly why you cannot interfere.
Let's break it down.
So it claims 10% of disease is inherited from ancestors, meaning your ancestors defied the Tao and the genetic or karmic ripple effect has reached you.
Okay.
80% is entirely self-made, generated by overeating, unchecked desires, worry, and greed, which physically damage your biological machine.
That's the biggest chunk.
Yeah, 80%. Then 9% is collectively made by humanity, such as living in a polluted environment or a highly stressful society. And the final 1% is simply cosmic order. Sometimes the universe requires a correction.
Right, so you can't touch it.
Right. It argues that suffering through an illness is the specific mechanism by which a person learns their lesson, gains wisdom, and repays their karmic debt to heaven and earth.
The retribution of cause and effect is described as an iron law of the universe. If you use divine supernatural powers to artificially wipe away someone's illness, you are robbing them of the torment they require to pay down their ledger. You disrupt the cosmic balance of their soul.
It's like an origin story where a protagonist gets immense, world-changing powers, but the first rule they learn is that they are forbidden from doing any superhero work.
Exactly.
I am still hung up on the reality of this, though. If I can bend iron and walk through walls and I see someone suffering in a hospital bed, I am supposed to stand by with a cold eye because I must respect their karmic debt. That feels incredibly removed from any sense of empathy.
It is entirely detached from human empathy, which is exactly the point. The celestial perspective is supposed to be alien to the human perspective. The celestial ledger demands that debts be paid.
So cold.
But, however, the text does add a grounded caveat here. It explicitly states that if you get sick, you should go see a regular doctor.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, a human doctor treating a disease with medicine is operating in line with the natural Tao. It is the use of supernatural shortcuts to bypass karma that violates the rules.
Okay, that makes it slightly more practical. But that lofty, almost alien perspective of watching humans suffer to pay off cosmic debts feels completely disconnected from everyday reality. Yet the final step of the text forces us to confront our most basic, earthly, and honestly, sometimes gross human realities.
Yes, because the philosophy dictates that before you can become a celestial, you must first successfully complete the task of being a human.
Being a human. The text states you must do your best to clear your earthly conscience so you can eventually leave the world behind without an ounce of guilt.
Settle the accounts.
Right. Priority number 1 is filial piety. It says respecting your parents is the physical embodiment of upholding the Tao.
Because you owe them.
Exactly. The logic is that you consumed their resources, you sucked their milk, and they spent sleepless nights caring for you. So if you aren't filial, your debt remains unpaid and you cannot transcend.
What's priority number 2?
Priority number 2 is raising your own children until they are 18. You are required to sacrifice your leisure time to educate them. Priority number 3 is fulfilling your duty to society, your neighbors, and even your livestock.
So it operates essentially as a checklist for closing out your earthly accounts. You cannot close a bank account if there are still outstanding balances.
That's a great way to think of it. But priority number 4 is the most surprising. Priority 4 is doing your best for yourself, which involves confronting your mortal desires.
Ah, the desire.
No. And the text's mechanism for conquering desire is not suppression. Like, you aren't told to act like a stoic monk. Instead, it demands extreme, deliberate overindulgence until the desire becomes entirely physically and psychologically tasteless.
It advocates burning out the dopamine pathways of desire through sheer exhaustion.
And the examples provided are intense. It says if sexual desire is constantly distracting your mind, go visit a prostitute to calm your body and mind.
Wow.
Yeah. If you have an urge to gamble, go gamble until you feel the crushing guilt, self-hate, and financial pain of losing.
Just burn it out.
If you like drinking, consume alcohol until you violently vomit. If you want to play mahjong, play it all night long until your face literally turns green and your muscles shake from exhaustion.
Goodness.
Swear wildly at people until they look back at you with utter contempt. And the most visceral example, if you've heard that cockroach meat is a rare delicacy, don't just wonder about it. Go eat a feast of cockroach meat until you feel deeply nauseous and want to vomit.
Ugh. I mean, it is a profound psychological tactic utilizing visceral disgust to shatter the illusion of preference.
So what does this all mean? It reminds me of the old, highly controversial parenting trick where a parent catches their teenager trying a cigarette, so they lock them in a room and force them to chain smoke the entire pack until they are physically ill, ensuring they never want to look at tobacco again.
Exactly the same logic.
But applying that to every facet of life. Is the path to divine enlightenment truly paved with all-night mahjong benders and gorging on cockroach meat?
According to Xuefeng's framework,
Yeah.
yes, the psychological mechanism here is that you cannot transcend a desire that you are actively suppressing.
Because it's still there.
Right. If you push an urge down, it remains in your subconscious shadow. It stays a tantalizing fantasy. Desires only hold power over you before they are fully realized.
So lean into it.
Exactly. By leaning into them to the point of absolute physical and emotional exhaustion, you demystify them. You experience firsthand that they are just a waste of your time and your energy. Once the fantasy is shattered by the brutal reality of a crippling hangover, a depleted bank account, or the taste of a cockroach, the desire naturally evaporates.
I can imagine.
You achieve true liberation because the temptation simply ceases to exist in your mind.
And once you have systematically burned out all of those desires, the text says you gradually give up all the remaining draining activities, like endless meetings, complaining friends, celebrating holidays, and gift giving.
Stripping it all away.
Bit by bit, you reduce your footprint on the world until you reach a state of total physical and mental freedom, finally ready to become a celestial.
Unrestrained by human obligation, despising the worldly dust, and fully prepared for a higher state of being.
Man, what an incredible journey this deep dive has been. We started with the radical concept of accepting a dirt floor hut just as easily as a luxury villa.
A lot of ground covered.
Yeah, we navigated the logic of dodging the high-interest spiritual debt of favors and promises. We explored the mechanics of unlocking reality-bending powers, only to learn we must hide them and allow people to suffer their own karmic debts.
Right.
All the way down to settling our earthly accounts and burning out our deepest desires through extreme, nauseating indulgence.
It forces a complete reevaluation of the invisible luggage we are carrying through our daily routines.
It really does. So I want to ask you listening.
Yeah.
Think about your own life today. Where are you gripping the steering wheel too tightly? Is it a specific relationship, a rigid career goal, or a grudge you feel justified in holding? What would happen if, just for today, you applied a little bit of that lightness? If you treated it as light as water?
You might discover that the very thing you are fighting so hard to control is exactly what is weighing you down.
And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on the mechanics of everything we've unpacked today. If everyone in the world successfully followed this exact path tomorrow, if we all hid our immense supernatural abilities, never made a single promise to one another, kept all our relationships strictly at arm's length, and refused to intervene in anyone else's suffering to protect their karma, would we finally achieve a utopian society of perfectly peaceful celestials?
Oh.
Or would human civilization, built entirely on those messy webs of connection and mutual reliance, simply cease to function altogether? There's something to mull over the next time you're deciding between the luxury villa or the water with pickles.